Let's see what's on the chopping block today. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey? Could probably get some good material out of that. No. The Rookie, starring Clint Eastwood and Charlie Sheen? The original Mad Max, The Great Outdoors, Kill Bill Volume 2, fucking Elf? What about, The Juice, starring Tupac? Sean, buddy, what's up?
Can you quit the obvious foreshadowing and just review what's ever in there?
What? Oh, yeah.
Well, you better get going.
Fuck. Is it time for this? Really? Well, you know what this calls for. Hello and welcome to Confused Reviews, where cartoon drawing reviews movies, and horror movies have come a long way. I'd say it all began around the 1930s and 40s, where Dracula and Frankenstein's monster reigned supreme. The 50s continued to make vampires and mummies really cool, but also giant monster movies began to take shape. Literally. The 60s gave us arguably Hitchcock's best movie, and created the zombie subgenre with a certain George Romero classic. The 70s gave us a couple classics about evil kids, sharks, and aliens, and the early days of the slasher craze were underway. And then the 80s exploded by creating some of the most recognizable horror icons, as well as making roughly 10 billion slasher flicks of varying quality, from everything about shopping malls to evil toys. By the time the 90s rolled around, everyone was beyond burnt out on slasher flicks, and horror was looking like it was in trouble. That was until halfway through the decade, a certain self-aware one gained a lot of attention and revived a genre that was on life support. But in turn, it gave us ones about idiotic teens that know the tropes of the movies they themselves are stuck in. The 2000s saw all but the disappearance of the big slasher icons, and instead tried to retool itself with the gross-out movies, making them not so much scary, but more hard to look at. That, and of course the remake trend that saw every old property, whether relatively new or decades old, see its way back to the silver screen. And finally the 2010s, which, unfortunately, isn't doing too hot. Sure, a couple great ones have slipped through the cracks, but it mostly consists of found footage, demonic, or ghost ones that are poorly made, cash grab ones that seem to be getting not only the bucks, but the franchises too. Sure, the older decades had a lot of duds, but they still had something newer movies are lacking, and we'll get into that later. Really narrowing it down a bit, 2014 saw the release of a horror movie about a board game, otherwise known as Ouija. Now, to most people, this movie came in one ear and out the other with a simple,
"Yeah, it was bad. Real bad. But who cares? I already forgot about it." Luke, what the hell? We hate this movie. Now even more so.
Yeah, it sucks now. It sucked then. I can't even remember a damn thing about it.
Pretty forgettable. Very forgettable.
But I didn't forget. No, I didn't let this shit slide. Any movie that makes over $100 million should deserve it. I've brought up Ouija before and even hailed it as the worst horror movie I've ever seen. Now, take that as you will, and mostly as it's intended, nothing more than hyperbole, but for a horror fan to crown a movie as the worst of its entire genre, there has to be something, or many things that lead to that conclusion, right?
You bet your silly cartoon ass there is.
Eric, what are you doing barging in like this?
Yeah, well, I don't know about everybody else, but I heard you talking about modern horror over here, and you know me as a lover of older, better horror, I thought I'd come and make sure that you were on the right path.
Well, yeah, of course.
Don't forget to mention how somehow this PG-13 jump scare-a-thon made $100 million at the box office.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
I will also don't forget to mention how like half the movie was reshot.
Yes, Eric, I was getting to all that, and trust me, this is going to be a big one.
Alright, cool. It seems like you got everything under control here, so I'll just let you do your thing. Good luck, and I'll have a drink for you.
Anyways, there's no real better way to explain this movie's sheer horrendousness aside from going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and that poster is really empty, and I hate it. Fuck, that one sucks too. That's better, like 0.1% better. Hold on to your asses, cause it's going to be a bumpy, cameo-filled ride. This is Ouija. So the film begins with some terrible child actors explaining the rules of the Ouija board.
You can never, ever play alone.
Glad they got their finest kid actors for this movie. After they spit out more cringe-inducing dialogue and sing a little rhyme, we also see the first of the billions of mistakes in this movie. So these kids grow up to be these guys, right? And their story takes place in, like, let's say 2013, 2014. So explain to me how the planchette is copyrighted in 2013.
The reason that bad things happen to you is because you're a dumbass.
Anyways, we can finally get into the Ouija terrible jump scare drinking game. Now, I must warn you, only participate if you're a professional alcoholic, because it might kill you.
Dick!
We're not even 2 minutes in. We lazily transition to the present, where we see Debbie, played by Shelley Henning, and if you're looking at her wondering where you've seen her, she was the protagonist in Unfriended, another disposable modern horror flick. Great. Anyway, she's using the board alone in front of the fire. She must be thinking to herself,
You have all these rules, and you think they'll save you.
because 30 seconds ago her younger self explains that you can't play alone or you'll experience spooky happenings. She throws the board into the fire and gets a call from Lane, played by Olivia Cooke, who's standing outside. Notice how, of course, Deb lives inside the same scary house that every other scary movie has, because frightening things only ever happen in houses that look like they're the prelude to the Haunted Mansion ride. Except in good movies. Deb heads outside and they talk for a bit in the same shot reverse shot garbage that is so uninteresting to watch I couldn't help but notice those weird light orbs in the background. Maybe it's reflection of light from the set, maybe it's aliens, who knows. Whatever it is, it's more fun to think about than this terrible script. Especially considering they don't talk like normal teens and instead act like what 40-year-olds imagine they do talk like.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
Once back inside, we see that, for some reason, all the light bulbs look like they've been lit very dramatically, because instead of looking like this, it has to look like this. Because how else are the kiddies looking down at their phones the whole time supposed to know when scary stuff is happening? She eats dinner by herself, like Kevin at the end of Home Alone, and notices the board is safe and sound on her bed. This scene also has zero suspense. Like, you look at a movie like the Amityville Horror, and it's genuinely suspenseful, and this movie is just, ooh, spooky music, blah. She looks through the planchette, and, hold on a second, this reminds me, where do you get such a fancy Ouija board? I know later in the movie it's revealed that she found it in the attic of this house, but still, it's got a very perfect look to it, so who made it? She then sees something apparently so scary it turns her into a deadite, and this happens. Where'd she hang those lights from? It can't be from just them hanging up on the wall because her weight would make it so that she'd fall straight down, and why was it dark only for the room to lighten up after she jumped? Shouldn't you be able to see the lights beforehand? Fun fact, as we mentioned before, around 50% of this movie was reshot, but for some reason they changed Debbie's death scene. Because she was originally thrown off the ledge to her death, but instead they changed it to her hanging herself, which in turn makes for a more distracting and dumb opening death only meant for shock value. The next day, Lane meets Trevor, played by Daren Kagasoff, and Isabel, played by Bianca Santos. And they say lines so generic and stupid, it makes the opening scene in the Elm Street reboot look like a Tarantino film.
Oh, you have a map.
No, come on, you guys can't.
Wow. She sucks. She heads home to be informed of her recently departed friend, and we bounce over to Debbie's house to see that her friends don't look all that broken up over losing their friend. They look more inconvenienced than anything. The opening scene in Super 8 even did a better job conveying the sadness. And just when you think this movie couldn't get any lower, Pete, played by Douglas Smith, walks in.
Debbie like this kind?
Yep, that's right, the idiot from the Bye Bye Man is here too.
I'll find her mom. I should give them to her.
Not only is he a shit actor, he knows how to pick the winners. She heads upstairs and slowly looks at all of Debbie's things, and I'm sorry. How far into this movie are we?
Bang, bang! Fuck you.
Jesus, it feels like this thing has been playing for a fucking week. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to make it.
You have to, Luke!
Ah, Cecil. You scared me.
You can't quit on us now. There's over an hour of the movie left.
Don't remind me.
You can do it, man. Just have another drink and press on!
I guess so. Later that night, we see Lane reminiscing over old photos and videos, which somehow has crystal clear picture and audio quality, even though they're filmed on what looks like a $50 camera. But before long, we see her sister Sarah, played by Anna Koto, sneaking out. Well, I wouldn't really call it sneaking out because she had her ride in front of the house, and she makes so much fucking noise on her way out, maybe next time try sneaking. Lane heads over to the Insidious house because she agreed to look after it while Deb's parents plan the funeral. And also so we can have the no parent cliche, since Lane's dad left too. Meanwhile, Trevor checks the pool cover out back, but why do they even have the pool cover if it doesn't stay in place to keep the water covered? Kinda defeats the purpose. Lane hears some noise upstairs and decides to investigate because she's an idiot in a horror movie, and finds the Ouija board in no time.
Dick! Oh my god.
It's me.
Fuck. She decides to explain the board again because we gotta re-explain the paper-thin story for the dumb target audience teens. If Lane wants to play a damn board game so bad, just play Candyland or some shit. I guarantee you it'll kill less people. Monopoly, on the other hand, not so sure. This waste of DVD space continues with more god-awful acting from Bye Bye Boy here.
Can't bring myself to erase her voicemails.
Okay, I get acting is very difficult for this moron.
She seemed worried about something.
But by God, could they have done a few more takes? Or even more horrifying, maybe these were the best takes.
Why are you asking me all this?
Because, Dougie, this movie is a flaming pile of porta potty vomit. Later that night, Sarah is banging her pencil on her books like an obnoxious asshole, when Lane says she's heading over to Debbie's place.
Sarah!
Wait a second, is she listening to the music from The World's Hardest Game? How embarrassing. In reality, Sarah was stalling until her sis left, but again, her idiot friend, boyfriend, I don't know, it's not made clear, left his car idling right in front of the house. This guy must be as charming and as smooth as McLovin.
It's in. Oh my god, it's in.
So yeah, Sarah tags along with the rest of the Goonies as they head over to Deb's empty house to play the Ouija board because, of course they are. They set up shop.
Oh my god.
And I'll sit around beginning the game. And let me get all these low-hanging fruits out of the way. Andrew Clark, Mila Kunis, Daphne, Bill S. Preston, and the grown-up Wednesday here have the rules and shit explained for like the 5th time, and it's once again a huge time waster and pointless because it was explained to us like 10 minutes ago. I'm all for filling in characters, but goddamn, this is just annoying.
As friends we've gathered, hearts are true.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
And another point I'd like to mention, and no, it's not the fact that you can see people like Pete intentionally pulling the piece right there. No, it's that, how is this a good grieving method? Of all the talking to lost loved ones mediums, You choose a child's board game? I totally get grieving happening in different shapes and ways, but a plastic board sold at your local Walmart probably isn't the best way to try, no matter how fancy or rustic the board may look. And if her friends are in the mindset that this is a good way to try or a good way to help her get over it, you're just feeding into an unhealthy coping mechanism. Actually, why am I going off onto this tangent? This movie doesn't care. It's like a goddamn circus. It racked up a bunch of money and skipped town. Moving on. The board then spells out "Hi friend," and instead of this installment of the circle concluding with Red finding them or something cool like that, no, the power pops off and they go snooping around the house like Scooby and the gang would. But you know, worse. The spirit makes them go all,
"Where could I
be?" throughout the house until finding one of the stove burners were on.
Shit. Did I leave the stove on?
But instead of having what happened in Child's Play happen, instead, Pete looks into the mirror and has, either the Nun, Candyman, Bloody Mary, the mirror from Shrek, or the creepy force from Mirrors throw his dumbass into the mirror. Glad the demon could make it so scary and sudden for him that he has time to brace the impact. This movie couldn't even manage to make a mirror-shattering moment believable. Man, we're only 40 minutes in, and I'm all out of booze. I need to go make a beer run, so I'll need someone to fill in for a minute.
And then someone pushed me from behind.
I know just the person. Shark movies, creature features, and giant monster movies.
Hey!
Hey Brian, or Brian Juice I guess. Since I summoned you here, take over talking about the scene while I get some more liquor to drown out the horrendousness of it all.
Glenn and Trevor chit-chat about God knows what, but the gist of it is that he tells her to move on, idiot, and leaves. But she then plays the game alone. Luke?
Yeah?
Isn't one of the rules, she said 50 fucking times, that you can't play alone?
Yep.
So why is she playing alone?
She's dumb.
And the whole movie is like this?
Uh-huh.
I'm out, man. I can't take this, and I've seen Rob Zombie's 31, Phantasm Ravager, and frickin' Texas Chainsaw.
Wait, well, I should have expected that. This movie just has that effect on people. So yeah, since she apparently has the IQ of a walnut, she plays alone, only to have Nona, played by Vivis Columbetti, find the planchette and of course do the same thing every old wise character does. Advise the protagonist not to touch it, only for said character to ignore everything the person says even though they obviously know what they're talking about. Why do modern movies feel the need to make the lead really ignorant and stupid? Like, looking back, we have Marty McFly, Ferris Bueller, Billy Peltzer, Laurie Strode, Sarah Connor, and all the kids in The Breakfast Club who are smart, capable, and regardless of genre or situation, all can be unique and interesting while still being able to get through the movie without looking like an emotionless slug. Later on, Trevor is riding his bike through the same highway from T2, and he heads down to some underground passageway that looks like the setup for a horror scene. But why does he get off his bike? Wouldn't he be less scared and get through quicker if he just rode his ass through? He has some chalk rolled over to him, but this isn't any ordinary chalk. This is Crayola chalk. I was gonna say Crayola chalk before that shopping cart jump scare interrupted me. Oh yeah, and he sees the "Hi friend" message again, because who gives a shit. Isabel is leaving work, and after being asked to take out the trash, for whatever reason, doesn't do it the way SpongeBob does. But instead slowly walks to her car, only to have a hand lunge at her. Why does everyone take these paranormal happenings so lightly? I mean, it took the third person to experience the "Hi friend" message to finally try and meet up. Like, watch this. Chris.
Yeah?
If I told you I saw a scary message, I don't know, etched onto my desk or written onto my car window from the inside, would you react so modestly?
Probably.
What?
I'm insane, remember?
Nice to talk to you as always, Chop.
Need any more help?
With how this shit's going? Probably. Back with our bland bimbo, her and Sarah notice the door suspiciously ajar.
You like it?
So yeah, they hide in her room and they idiotically make a lot of noise and just hide in the closet, as if they didn't just make it really obvious and give away their position. Say that was just a burglar or whatever, they'd be fucked. Like, even Michael Scott would have a better chance.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay calm.
everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Wait.
Everybody calm down!
The next day, we get more
And I saw it too.
Oscar-worthy performances, and they finally realize they all saw the same message. But seriously, what boring, pathetic demon says something as boring as "Hi, friend"? Sounds really pussy to me. What the fuck was that? Was that a ghost? It can't be. Anywho, they play the same game again, and we see the demon get outsmarted by Pete.
This isn't Debbie.
What do you mean?
I never took her there.
Wow, how sad. A guy dumber than a sack of bricks got the upper hand on it.
Were we ever talking to Debbie?
Wow, is it really this easy to find a ghostly spirit that's nearby? Because I don't buy it. Actually, I have an idea.
Three days later.
Is anyone there? Holy dicks, it does work, but is this who I think it is? Oh, fuck.
Miss me?
Well, yeah, actually, no. I was testing to see if...
What is that?
What? It's just a harmless Ouija board. Well, almost harmless.
No, you moron. What is that? Oh man, I heard about that movie All in Hell. You know they use that as a substitute to torture, right?
No, and I can safely say I'd prefer the latter right now.
How far into it have you gotten?
Like, 48 minutes?
My god. You are a trooper.
So what, now I assume that you're back, you have some master scheme for me, or...
Honestly, whatever I throw at you can't possibly be much worse than that, so, I guess I'll just sit down right here.
Okay? This review has seriously gone in some weird directions. Back in the movie, they find out one of the names of the ghosts is Doris Sander, which kinda sounds like a porn star name, but regardless.
I think we should get out of here.
Deb tries telling them to run, as it literally spells it out to the audience, because Mother is coming. Hopefully not this mother. Actually, I'd rather have J-Law. I never thought I'd say that.
We're at the Golden Globes. If you put your phone down, you'd know that.
There's another jack-off I can do without.
But seriously, this is the best creepy mother design they could come up with? It looks like every other generic paranormal creature. Could have at least given it horns or a venom tongue or anything to make it look less like Kirby's Wet Dream. They get super spooked and all run away, and after Lane gives the same uninspired, "We're all gonna be okay because it's all over now" pep talk, they all feel alright. Like that's the end of it.
Yeah. Like that's ever gonna happen. Oh, Lord.
Exactly. The next day, after Trevor blows off Lane while wearing headphones that look like they hook up to a goddamn NES, Pete also ignores her. Wait, why? You all willingly went and participated in the game twice, so why are they mad at her? She should be the one that's mad because she believed it was real while the other ones thought she was just crazy. Man, this movie is so bad I'm starting to defend her. What the fuck? Lane eventually watches some videos Deb took and...
Operation Clean House.
Great, just what we need. Another vlogger. But yeah, she begins filming herself cleaning the attic in something ripped right out of Paranormal Activity 7. Or 9, whatever one they're on now. And we see her uncover the once forgotten Ouija board. Now, I'm not going to harp on the amazing video quality for a consumer-grade camera again, because, let's face it, it's beating a dead horse. But it does make something very clear to me. The opening scene showed an average everyday board that you can buy wherever, but the one the present day characters are using is some fancy one, so where'd they get it? So, like I said earlier, it turns out it was left behind by the previous homeowners for coincidentally Debbie to move into, which I'm going to consider to be a deluxe dumb. Because not only is the chances of that happening slim to fucking none, she's known about the rules of the game since her childhood. So if she had any intellect, she'd know not to go fucking with it better than most, because we saw her explain it. So her consequences seem self-inflicted to me.
She played alone. She played alone.
So did you, ass fuck. Was the script for this movie written on a fucking wet napkin? Or is this seriously one of the most dense characters in film history? In more exciting news, and by that I mean as exciting as jumping directly onto a cactus, Isabel returns home and begins filling the tub, and pulls open the mirror cabinet because, as we all know, mirrors solely exist to have horror movie things happen. But that'd be too difficult to block and shoot correctly, so instead she starts flossing, only to have her mouth sewn shut. Now, I hate to say it, but that doesn't look too bad. It's not great by any means, but compared to that, it looks alright, and is the most accepting thing of good I'll give this raging dumpster fire. She's then possessed and forced to levitate off the ground and smash her head against the porcelain sink. Okay, two things. One, why didn't the demon just drown her in the bathtub? Seems like it'd be way easier to write off as an accident instead of the story behind it being that she overflowed the bathtub while, I don't know, taking a shit, and slipped and hit her head. And two, why is she of all people the first one that's targeted for death? She didn't do anything to upset it, so why didn't it go after Lane for actively pursuing it, maybe Pete for tricking it, or even Sarah for being a cunt, I don't know, but regardless, she's dead, so whatever. The next day, Lane tries talking to Trev and Pete, who blame themselves for Isabel's death, and
And I'll never forgive myself.
is really convincing me.
Not.
But she still somehow convinces dipshit here to go back to Debbie's house anyways. I'd also like to mention that there are many instances of just dreadfully boring scenes of characters padding the runtime by slowly walking around, and again, nothing visually interesting to make it worth the slow burn feel like in good movies. Instead, it's just to push this pile of shit over the 90-minute mark. Lane heads up to the attic from The Grudge, and she finds a doll with half of its face burnt. Another fun fact, since half of this pile of shit was reshot due to test screenings doing poorly, and I can't imagine why, the reason for her face being burnt was that later in the movie, the real Doris was supposed to have half of her face burn as well, but it doesn't. So there's another thing to add to the ways that they could have made a watchable movie, but fell flat on their face. Dick! After more nonsense... Dick! Okay, enough. Anyways, we see the same old pictures that they presume is from the 40s or 50s, but to me they look like a normal picture with Snapchat filters on them. And Pete decides to look up the backstory for the finale on everyone's favorite search engine. Search. They didn't even try to make it look like Google or Yahoo by changing the colors or style. No, it's a black box with the word search inside it. This makes the fake website in Cyberbully look realistic. After a whopping 3 clicks, Pete finds a high-resolution photocopy of an old article about Doris Zander.
I found this old article.
Kronk, what do you think of this plot convenience?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
But yeah, they find out Doris had a sister, so Lane heads to the loony bin to see her, and of course she's played by Lynn Shay. And she's laughing all the way to the bank.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
But yeah, this whole scene and Shay's inclusion was added during the reshoots, so basically she was a last-minute addition, and I'm assuming she told them, either I'm going to be wheelchair-bound or I'm not doing it, because why do anything aside from the bare minimum? Paulina explains in more uninspiring, boring shots that her mother was the reason Doris went missing and had her lips sewn shut, because, you know, in horror movies, moms are crazy. And after older Black Widow here explains that she's got to cut the stitches from Doris's body, Discount Donna here splits to go find it. Wouldn't it be funny if the obvious twist here was that this clearly crazy person only did that to reawaken her demon sister because she said it herself, the only way to stop it was to keep her mouth shut? Lane and Pete and Sarah and Trevor too, guess the two went and reconvinced them off screen, all had to put a stop to devious Doris. But Trevor nopes out of there and Lane finds the creepy room from Ghost Encounters or any scary movie ever made, and she easily finds the rotten body. Dick! What the... What? Where did she go? Up and out? And that noise. What? I need a minute. Yellow?
Luke, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, you know, another terrible movie breaking my spirit.
You going to go back in there and finish it?
I'm leaning very heavily towards no.
But you have to.
Why?
Because explaining good horror films from bad horror films is what keeps us on our toes. If these modern movies keep being left alone without a word, they'll just keep happening. Then, we'll never again have any of those classic horror movies that we once did.
You really think so?
I know so. Now get back in there, finish the review, expose this piece of shit, and get rid of Freddy. If there's time.
He's right. I've got work to do. She cuts those stitches like a fucking pro, and big shock, that releases Doris into the world again, who quickly turns her mother into a Pompeii cosplay. What? The obvious twist? Was obvious? Shit, for a minute there I thought this piece of shit might surprise me, or impress me. Like, maybe that only made the mother stronger, so they have to play the game one last time to settle the evil, or else Debbie's soul will be forever taken, or maybe that was the end and I can turn off this cinematic castration. I would have preferred anything else. Just when everything seems a-okay, Pete envisions, I'm not sure, but sees Debbie, who just screams at him. Guys! And come to think of it, get rid of those stitches and this is literally the same terrible possession design they use in the Bye-Bye Man.
Tell me.
Bye-bye, man. Bye-bye, man.
Now this is just getting annoyingly bad. And of course, Lane is informed of Pete's unfortunate fate. And she quickly rushes back to Paulina for her second and final minute of screen time, who of course finally reveals the shitty plot twist we already discussed. Mother was trying to save them because Paulina and Doris were in cahoots. But if she was on their side or whatever, why'd she jump scare them and appear to be a long-faced Ash Williams? Make yourself look like Casper and maybe they'd not be afraid of you, idiot. Oh, and Paulina stands up and is all like, "I'm walking here! I'm walking here!" And Lane gets out of there. Later, Nona explains how to defeat the demon, but she doesn't go with them because... fuck that! And I don't blame her. Lane's sorta boy toy then bounces over to Debbie's to follow a fake Sarah down to the pool, only to get startled by that creepy bitch in 237 and promptly drowns.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
Oh darn, I'm so sad he's gone. He was such a depth-filled, charismatic character. What was his name again? Tony? Terrence? I don't know. The two remaining meat puppets watch as Theodore? Thomas? Turns into Donovan and disappears. So they rush downstairs only for Sarah to get pulled away like in Quarantine, and Lane sings one last nursery rhyme to attract the fly here. But if this demon is so much more powerful now that she got the stitches cut, why didn't she just possess and kill all the characters at once? She could clearly do it and would have actually made the smarter, and I'm using that with the biggest air quotes ever, villain win for once. Only way this would have made sense if Dora's using the Joker's logic.
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
But she clearly isn't. Now that's acting! How she didn't get an Oscar nom for this movie is beyond me. She makes Busta Rhymes in Resurrection look like Denzel Washington in Training Day. But yeah, in case you thought it couldn't get any more cliche, contrived, and dumb, you must not be paying attention, as Deb returns, and even though it's supposed to be dead, still looks like a supermodel, and allows Sarah to toss that fucker's corpse into the fire, and have her spit out the same stuff as Slappy uses. And with one more final Iron Man 3 shadow, the ghosts are finally at rest. If only we could have ended it like this.
Piss off, ghost!
He's freaking gone.
I would have actually been content, but instead she went out like a bitch and leaves me more confused and irritated than anything. Where'd Debbie go after this? Is she at peace? Why did it get defeated so easily? Why does this movie exist at all? You know, stuff like that. But in our final scene, we quickly see Lane begin flossing because, for whatever reason, these characters are really into dental hygiene. And of course nothing happens. So instead, she finds the planchette on her desk and looks through it for, what else? One last bullshit waste of potential jump scare.
dick!
And that was Ouija, and I don't know if you noticed, but I hated every second of it. It's truly special when you come across a movie this broken, this dull, and this shitty. To start off with the characters, there weren't any. All we had were very thin archetypes that gave me nothing to invest myself in them. Like seriously, it's very odd to me that someone like Olivia Cooke, who's pretty fucking great in Bates Motel, can be so horrific in this movie. But then again, I don't think the best actors of all time could make these lines work. Besides the lead, the supporting cast is awful too, with one exceptionally bad one. The plot, oh boy. It's a complete mess. Every scene feels more boring than the last. There isn't one scene that sticks out in my head at all and feels like that you could mishmash all the scenes into any order and it wouldn't make any difference. Plus, I've seen this thing 3 times, which is more than anyone should ever have to, and I can barely remember what happens. There's like a mom demon, but she's actually good even though she acts mean and the kids were working together or something. I don't know, bottom line is that it started as a movie about a scary board game, and that's a rough beginning, and this script took it down to a whole new level of terrible. And as we've been over through a painful drinking game, there's not one instance of suspense or well-earned scares in this piece of crap. Instead, every 5 seconds we're met with a cheap jump scare that is about as effective as driving onto the freeway with a blindfold and earplugs in. I don't understand why anyone would think this garbage method of getting fear out of someone is effective once, let alone over a dozen fucking times. A good horror movie should leave you nervous when you leave the theater, scared to walk past the mirror once you get home, and shiver once you crawl into bed. But this movie has me struggling to remember the story, let alone any scary moment. Now, with all that said, and you've made it this far, you're probably thinking, okay, I get all that, but a lot of horror movies are like that, so how in the hell is this crowned the worst horror movie ever made? Well, that's because I know the effect a movie like this has on the youth who goes to see it, because I saw it myself all those years ago. It was late October 2014. School was out and a large group of kids scrambled to the nearby theater on a Friday to see a horror movie. Since we didn't want to see Annabelle, Dracula Untold, or whatever the hell Exists is, for whatever reason we bought tickets to Ouija. I sat down, expecting an average horror movie with a few fun moments in it, and as the movie started, I felt a wave of disappointment and disgust flow over me. I watched the whole movie, mouth agape, witnessing the horror unfold. No, not the cheap jump scares or anything in the movie. No, something much, much worse. Once it concluded and I was ready to claw my eyes out, I heard the audience begin to talk to each other. They said things like, "That was really good. That really scared me. That might be the best horror movie I've ever seen." And I listened and I couldn't believe my ears. Did I see the same movie as all of these people? Sure, I was way more of a movie buff then than probably 90% of the people there, but really? This is the best horror movie you've ever seen? I felt ill. I had to get out of there. I went home and spent the next couple of hours trying to comprehend what I just saw. A movie like that scared people? Was enjoyed by people? I couldn't accept it. I pushed it out of my head and I just hoped I was missing something. But then I saw the box office numbers roll in and $100 million later, I knew what had happened. Somehow we divulged movies like this as good or fun to watch, and that was too much for me to accept. So when the DVD released, I vowed to keep it hidden, in fear of something happening again. So I locked it up, and I hoped I'd never have to lay eyes on this pile of horse shit again. But now that I've spent 2 years and 49 episodes reviewing some of the best and also some of the worst movies out there, I knew it was finally time to explain why Ouija is pure garbage and how movies like it are ruining horror. You see, scary movies, like I've said, have had some rocky patches throughout history, but even looking back at the older, bad stuff, every one I've researched has one thing, one single element that makes them not only entertaining, good or bad, but the reason horror is so special to me. Love.
What the hell was that?
Now I know, that's sappy as hell, but it's true. The reason a movie like Toxic Avenger can be really bad but still loved by so many is because everyone involved had so much passion and care for it, regardless of the outcome. It's still super entertaining to watch. Same thing goes for the opposite side of the spectrum, with movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Tobe Hooper set out to make a terrifying movie with what little resources he had, and after pouring blood, sweat, and tears into it, it turned out to not only be one of the best horror movies of the decade, but one of the best scary movies ever crafted. So it pains me to see movies like Deliver Us from Evil, Paranormal Activity 4, and The Devil Inside be placed in the same genre as some of the best movies ever made. Now, the argument can be made that every genre is like that, and honestly, you're right. But the reason it saddens me is that all movies like this does is further solidify it as the bottom of the barrel trash medium, when it's far from the truth. And Ouija, I believe, perfectly embodies everything wrong with modern horror and shows in a clean 90 minutes that still somehow feels like it has a runtime of 10 fucking years how you can manage to make a terrible, despicable, worthless piece of flaming trash when you're only in the mindset to make a quick cash grab with no real effort put into it. The acting is abysmal, the plot makes no goddamn sense, but is littered with cliches, dumb MacGuffins, and overall dogshit writing throughout the entire thing. Mix that with cheap, lazy jump scares that provide nothing, and you've got the perfect shit smoothie of a film. I hate this movie with every fiber of my being. It's legitimately appalling, and I wouldn't wish the viewing of this movie upon the worst of enemies. Obviously, without a doubt, and unfucking deniably, I'm giving Ouija a humongous, gigantic, fat fucking F. I hate it. Now, with all that said, and this giant episode almost concluded, is Ouija the worst horror movie ever? No. It's the perfect example of a disposable piece of shit designed to sell tickets to short attention span teenagers, but there's, of course, much worse out there. And even though I'd still put it in the running, it's not the absolute worst. And even though it does make it very easy to illustrate my points, in no way is it acceptable. And still leading the horror genre towards a bleak, dreadful future. But if we can somehow speak with our wallets and stop movies like The Ouija's, Truth or Dares, or Wish Upon successful, we might get more things like The Witch, Don't Breathe, and Cabin in the Woods. And who knows, maybe if we keep it up, we might get another golden age of horror. Real soon. What a day.
Wow. That was very well said.
Thank you. It's because of you guys that I said any of it. Fuck me, what now?
I think the spirits are really pissed.
How do we stop it?
There's only one way.
What's that?
I'll be back.
What just happened? Hey, I guess that makes as much sense as any of the other Ouija board rules. But he did that for me. Even though we're like the worst of enemies.
Hello, Luke.
Fuck, another interruption.
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate you for reaching 50 episodes.
Oh, well, thanks, man. It really means a lot.
And well, since you crowned it one of the worst horror movies ever made, I thought I'd send you a little gift.
Ooh, what kind of gift?
Well, since bad, obscure horror movies are kind of my forte, I thought I'd send you down to my level. And send you some good stuff.
What?
Go ahead. Open it.
What is this?
I just thought I'd show you that that wasn't even the worst movie to feature a Ouija board.
What the shit?
Now why don't you check out one of those?
No, I'm done with this bullshit. Fedora, I appreciate the gesture, but no movie about a Ouija board should ever be left alone.
Well, that was a little unnecessary, yet surprisingly gnarly.
Thanks.
Well, see you around, bro.
Until next time, bud. Man, this was truly a crazy episode. Still can't believe I've done 50 of these things. I'm Confused Reviews. Thank you for watching.